Hello everyone and welcome. In this lecture we'll learn about line styles and adding text labels to our graph. As usual, we start by importing pandas and numpy and Matplotlib's pyplot, and we have the magic function to see our graph in Jupyter Notebook. Let's start by looking at an example. We'll use the line space method for our x values, and we have our cosine and sine functions from one of the previous lectures. So we'll start by looking at the different line styles that we have. So we have various line styles. There's one like a colon, a dash, and a dot. We have two dashes and then one dash. So these are the different line styles. Let's look at some of these line styles by plotting the cosine and sine functions here. So we'll start by calling the plot function, and then we'll pass our x and y values. So we'll use x as our x value, and then let's use this cosine function that we defined here for our y variable. And let's pass the color attribute and set it to red. And we have seen the line width attribute. Let's set it to 2.8. And to use different line styles, we simply pass the line style attribute. So line style, and we set it to, let's see, the colon. Okay, and let's run this. So now we have the colon line style. Okay, this is the line style. And let's make our line width sticker 3.8. Okay, this is what it looks like. Next, let's look at the second line style, which is a dash and a dot. So we'll call Matplotlib's plot method, then pass our x and y values. Let's use the sine function, and then for line width, let's make it 3.5, and then line style, let's set a dash and a dot. Okay, if we run this, we get this line style. Okay, the other line styles that we have, let me copy this, paste it here. We have two dashes, so it looks like that. And in the same figure, let's also plot the last line style. So line width, let's set it to 3.0, and then for our line style, let's use a single dash. Okay, and let's use different colors for each of them. Let's use green for the first sine graph, and then for our cosine plot, let's use red. Okay, let's run it now. Here we have our two different line styles. So the one in green is two dashes, and the one in red is just a dash. Okay, so if you make the plot bigger, you can use the figure method and then pass the fig size attribute to make the graph bigger and see the line styles. Next, let's look at how we can pass text into our graph. Okay, let's take and look at one of the graphs. So plt.plot x cosine of x. Let's use a color of green, and for our line width, let's set it to 3.2. And there is another method known as the text method. So we can call Matplotlib's text method. So plt.text, and then we can pass the position where we want the text, and also what we want to display and how we want to display it. Okay, so first we call the text method, and then let's pass a position. Let's start with, we can adjust this position later on. So let's pass the x and y values. Let's say -4 and -0.3 maybe. We'll adjust it later on. And then the value of the text we want to display. Let's say this text will be displayed across our plot. Okay, and the text method also takes attributes like rotation and font size. Let's pass those. So let's pass a rotation of maybe 20 degrees, and then font size of 14 maybe. Let's first see what this will look like. Okay, so here we have our cosine graph, we have our plot, and then here we have our text, right? It says this will be displayed across our plot. So depending on the rotation and the values that we pass here, it will be displayed at that place, right? So we can change these values. So we can play around with the rotation and then these values so that it can be displayed wherever we want it. Okay, so if I change this value to, let's say, -7, and instead of -0.3 I can make it, let's say, 0 maybe, and see what this will look like. And let's make the rotation 35 degrees and run it. So this will be displayed across our plot. Okay, so you can change these attributes to whatever you want. Okay, let's look at one more example. So this time I'll leave the rotation. I can take out the rotation so it will be a horizontal line. And let me change the x values to -8 and the y value to 0. Run it again. And now you have this text will be displayed across our plot. So you can adjust it to wherever you want it to be displayed. Okay. And you can also use negative rotation. So in this case, let me paste it here. We can also use a negative rotation, font size, run it, and it will look like that. So play around with this variables, change the values, and see what you get. And you can also use the text method with subplots. So let's say we want 2 subplots. So first we'll call the subplot method, and let's pass 2 to 1, number of rows, columns, and fig number. Let's make it 2 1 1, and then we can call the plot method for our first subplot. Let's use x, cosine of x, color, let's set it to red, and for line width, let's set it to 2.8. So this will be our first subplot. And for our second subplot, we'll call the subplot method, and let's pass 2 1 2, number of rows, columns, and our fig number. So plt.plot x, sine of x, let's set the color to green or blue or any color that you want. For line width, let's set it to 3.8. So for subplots, you can individually call the text method under each subplot. So plt.text, and then you pass the x and y values, let's say -5 and -0.5, and the value of your text. This will run across our subplot or any text that you want. Let's use a rotation of maybe 11 degrees. Okay. And for font size, let's use the same font size, 14. So let me copy this and paste it here for the second subplot. And for our second subplot, I'll use the same location, and let me change the rotation to -11. Font size, I'll keep it the same. And let's run this. Okay, so here we have our two subplots. This will run across our subplot. This will run across our subplot. So you can adjust this to different values and see what you get. Okay, let me copy this wholesale and show you. So instead of 2 1 1, let's try 1 2 1. So 1 row, 2 columns. And for our second subplot, 1 row, 2 columns, and fig number. Run it and you get that. Okay, you can adjust this to anything that you like. Just wanted to show you those examples. Just to make it a little bit nicer, we can call the figure attribute the figure method, and then pass the fig size attribute and set it to a value that fits your notebook the best. Let's try 10 by 6. And it looks much nicer. And there we can adjust the position of this text so that it's displayed wherever we want it in our subplots. Great. Thank you, everyone. Just to summarize, we looked at the different line styles that we have, and we saw how we could display text labels in our subplots or plots in general. Thank you, everyone. See you at the next lecture.